How are you doing, everybody? I am yours truly, the one and only Brother Ricky, and I am happy to be with you all here on P Stars, Radio. The time is now 10:31 a.m. Man, how you guys doing today, man? How are you guys doing today? We are inching closer and closer to the final few days or final 2 weeks of the year as we head straight into 2026. So, again, how are you guys doing so far in terms of like how you're finishing out the month or the year strong? Because that's something that I want to encourage everybody is to finish out this year extremely strong, go hard until the final few days of the month and ultimately the year. All right. So keep pushing hard, keep pushing strong, and yeah, man. It's a good day to be here. It's a good day to be alive, and yeah, I'm just blessed. I'm blessed, and I hope you all feel the same as well. Now, for today, okay, for today, I did want to dive into a particular topic, which is going to be focused on just this specific topic alone. Normally, what I would do in the vast majority of my shows is jump into multiple topics for like, the NBA, right? The NFL, um, and all the other topics that I normally get into. But today, I want to specifically stick to the NBA. Now, there was something that I wanted to talk about specifically in terms of the NBA, and it has to do so with a lot of the viewership, right? I believe I talked about this before. I'm not exactly sure, but I believe I talked about this before in terms of the viewership going down, right? And, things of that nature. But I did want to get in a little bit on the veterans, right? Okay, so let's just talk about this now, right? So, okay, think about all the veterans that are still currently in the league right now, okay? All the veterans that are still currently in the NBA right now. Who do we have? We have LeBron James, right? We have Stephen Curry. We have Kevin Durant. Who else? Who else? We have James Harden. I want to take a minute to look at every single person. One moment. Who was in the league during? Hold on. All right. Just want to take the time now to look. Okay. Okay. Brandon Jennings. Okay, so I'm taking a look here to just to give you an explanation of what I'm trying to talk about here. So, think about all the veterans that are currently in the NBA as of now. Excuse me, as of now, right? Again, like I brought up before. You have Curry. You have LeBron James. You have Kevin Durant, James Harden. You also have guys like Chris Paul, DeMar DeRozan, Drew Holiday, Russell Westbrook, Kyle Lowry, Brooke Lopez. Again, you have a lot of these guys that are still playing in the NBA. Kevin Love, Jay Crowder, Seth Curry, Kyle Lowry, Al Horford. Guys like these who are veterans to the game, veterans to the NBA, who are still currently in the NBA as of now. What will that look like once these guys are out of the league, once these guys exit the league. The reason why I ask this question is specifically because of, again, like I brought up before about the viewership. We have some of the viewership in the NBA starting to plummet, right? Currently, and you have a lot of complaints from the fans, and a lot of these complaints that you may hear from the fans are complaints that I see myself. I don't know if you guys recognize them yourselves or if you guys also see them yourselves, but a lot of the complaints, okay, that I hear or that I see online about fans and how they feel about the NBA currently today, again, are things that I notice. And a lot of these things that fans complain about have to do with a lot of people who are trying to be like the next Stephen Curry. Now, when you hear Stephen Curry, the thing that you hear about the most when it comes to Stephen Curry is the three-point master, the three-point king. I genuinely believe, and I think numbers can back this up as well, is that there will never be another Stephen Curry in the NBA. Nobody else, in my opinion, can surpass the three-point prowess of Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry is, I believe, the first to ever do it, to be a lights-out three-point shot. I mean, of course, you hear of, the guys like Ray Allen, right, or Larry Bird, Steve Kerr back in those days, who used to do it back in those times. But you never, at least in my opinion, you never see anybody do it like Stephen Curry does. Never. And I think it will be a long time, a very long time, maybe not even in my lifetime, or maybe even in your lifetime, where we will ever find another player like Stephen Curry, or another player to do it like Stephen Curry. Because again, the way this man does, the three-point shooter that he is, magnificent as he is, I don't think we'll find another player that is like him for a very long time. But what we are seeing currently, okay, right now in the NBA is a lot of players trying to play as if they're Stephen Curry. And what do I mean by that? A lot of players are shooting threes more so than making very good plays. Now, don't get me wrong, it's good to see threes here and there, but every single possession to see players shoot threes, miss threes, and so on and so forth. And then on top of that, right, on top of the missed threes that we see from, all these players in the league, you got a lot of guys who are very much doing bare minimum or even below that when it comes to defense, because that's another complaint, right? That's another complaint that we hear from a lot of fans, and that I also see myself with the lack of defense, right? Now, of course, you got your players here and there that are putting in a lot of effort, on defense, and that's great, but it's something that you would like to see all around with a lot of the players and a lot of the teams when it comes to defense. The defense seems to be very, very lacking, at least in my opinion, from what I see. I don't know how you guys may feel about that. Also, I do want to say I am going live on Facebook and YouTube right now, so please feel free to, chime down in the comments your opinions on the matter, or your opinions on the topic that I'm getting into right now. Please, again, feel free to let me know your opinions down in the comment section for YouTube and Facebook. But again, for the lack of defense, again, it's my personal opinion, where I'm seeing a lack of defense for the most part when it comes to the NBA, right? Again, you got guys shooting threes way too much, and then from a lot of the missed threes, you see the lack of defense on the defensive end, or getting back down on defense to start making the game more interesting or more intense or more challenging. Again, you're seeing a lot of lack in defense, right? And a lot of the other complaints that I'm seeing as well from a lot of the fans are in terms of, like, how can I say this? Okay, hold on. It's well, what I'm seeing in terms of like what's happening in terms of like why people are complaining about in the NBA. Um, it has to do a lot also with uh, how can I say this? A lack of seeing a lot of the superstars, on the court, right? The lack when I say the lack of seeing superstars on the court. For example, I guess this happened with Jimmy Butler, right? Where a lot a lot of the times, and this was back when Jimmy Butler played for the Miami Heat, where a lot of players, or not a lot of players, but a lot of the fans wanted to see players like Jimmy Butler back when he was in the Heat be more on the court, more so than on the sidelines, right? And this was something that frustrated fans a lot, to the point now where the NBA, I believe during the start of this season, they implemented a new rule. Mom, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But they just started implementing, right, this new rule in the NBA where um, there had to be a certain limit on how long they could keep key players from playing in the NBA. Otherwise, the team would be fined. I forgot what this rule was called, but I learned that they recently implemented this rule into the NBA in order to keep from players not playing in the games or throughout the regular season, because again, you had players who spent a large majority of the regular season not playing, and that caused a lot of contention or a lot of frustration with the fans not seeing their favorite player play on the court. Now, of course, you have your instances where, right, a lot of the players will be injured, right, where it would warrant them from not being able to compete or not being able to be out on the floor, which completely makes sense, right? It makes a lot of sense, because if you're injured, there's not much that you can do to help your team win the game, right? It makes complete sense. But then you also have times too where, you know, a lot of players will have, you know, absences from games because of personal reasons, in terms of family matters or whatever the case may be, which also makes sense as well, right? There are times where something may happen in your family that will also, again, warrant you from having to be absent from your team's game day or whatever the case may be. Again, it completely makes sense. But again, there are times where, again, you're being paid, right? Because again, make no mistake, a lot of these NBA players are getting paid a lot of money, a whole lot of money, just for them to not be out on the court performing as they are paid to do so, right? And again, I can see why it's very frustrating for a lot of fans. It's frustrating for me because I remember one time where I went to a Miami Heat game and I really wanted to see a player play, right? I wanted to see an individual player play, but unfortunately, he was not playing. He was on the sidelines, and that did kind of bum me out, because it was for this specific player that I came to this game to see play, and unfortunately, he wasn't playing. Now, I don't remember if it was because of an injury or something else. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember, but that just so happened to be the case that when I came to the game that day, that individual player was not playing. So I can understand, again, I can understand the frustration with a lot of the fans for this specific situation or this specific scenario for the NBA. But yeah, man, you also have players like a very good example, players like Paul George, right? Now, for his instance, he was injured, right? But you rarely get to see players like Paul George on the court. He just recently came back from an injury. I'm not exactly sure what his status is right now in terms of the roster for the 76ers. But again, players like Paul George, who's making tons of money, right? And by all means, right? Make your bread, make your cash, make it how you see fit. But you got players like him who are rarely out on the court, right? But are outside of the court, maybe because of an injury or whatever the case may be. In his situation, it was an injury, but he's not on the court. and he's making tons of money. I'm talking millions, millions of dollars just to not be out on the court. These teams are investing a lot of money into these players to see them perform for their team, to ultimately help them get to the playoffs and ultimately to the finals, and again to ultimately win a championship. But a lot of these teams find themselves investing in players who are rarely playing on the court, right? And again, for these guys, get it how you live, make your bread, make your money, do you. But again, this is something right here that has altered the viewership for the NBA, right? Uh, Not making fans want to tune in to view the NBA and their games, right? I believe for this year, if I'm not mistaken, this year there's currently 60 million viewership. Yeah, there's more than 60 million who are viewing the NBA. That in terms of viewers that are tuning into the NBA, tuning into NBC, Peacock, Amazon Prime Videos, or ESPN, right? Where there's been 60 million people that are viewing the NBA right now currently. But again, there's been an increase. There's been an increase in terms of viewership for some of the things that I listed. Also, with a lot of the things that we're listing as well, I also want to add in what else? There's something that I had in mind that also contributes to the lack of viewership. I guess that's all for now. Like, again, 3 points, way too many excessive 3-point shootings, right? A lot of the lack of star players who are not attending games for the most part. They may be attending games, but they're not on the field, so they may be sitting on the sideline for the most part, right? But you have that, a lack of defense, like I brought up before. You have a lack of defense from a lot of the teams in the NBA. And yeah, it's things like this that plummets the viewership for the NBA. And then when you try to compare this, right? When you compare the viewership now compared to the Jordan era, right? The Jordan era, the Bulls era, the 1990s. Excuse me, 1980s going to the 1990s. During those eras where it was driven by, again, players like Michael Jordan and the Bulls dynasty, setting records that were untouched, right? Untouched, right, in the NBA. Now you see a whole big difference and a whole big shift now, considering we're not in the 90s or the 80s anymore. We are now in the 2000s, all right? The 2000s, so on and so forth. And again, during the 2000s, where we have now been introduced to players like LeBron James, right? Hold on. Being introduced to players like LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, right? Some of these guys are retired now, but LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, guys like these who have just been recently drafted into the NBA back in 2000s, all right? Who else? David West, Mo Williams, Kyle Korver, Zaza Pachulia. During the 2000s, when these guys were drafted into the NBA, you started to now see a little bit more of an increase, right, back into like the viewership in the NBA. Pops, thanks for tuning in. Pops, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. You are the best. But yeah, again, during those times where LeBron James was drafted into the NBA, guys like these, again, you start to see a bit of an increase in the viewership of the NBA, where now you got to see a lot more competition again, a lot more athleticism, a lot more playmaking. Not too many threes. Of course, you had your threes here and there, right? You always have your threes happening here and there in the NBA, but not so excessively as you see it now, currently in the NBA. But again, during those times back in the 2000s, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, so on and so forth. Again, the viewership was crazy during those times, right? But now You see a lot of these guys making their exit, right? Carmelo Anthony retired, right? Chris Bosh retired. Dwayne Wade retired. Who else? Who else? I believe Zaza Pachulia also retired as well. David West. A lot of these guys retired. It's really the guys that you're truly seeing in the NBA is obviously LeBron James. I believe LeBron James is on his 23rd season right now. 23rd season. So LeBron James is, I believe, currently the only player in his draft class. Okay? The only player, I believe, in his draft class who is still in the NBA currently. All right? So you have guys like them in the that have made the viewership very high. Who else? Hold on. Let me see who else. Yeah, man. Derek Zimmerman, Zaza Pachulia, Mo Williams, Kyle Korver. Yeah, man. A lot of these guys back in LeBron James's draft class have already made their exit and retired from the NBA, which makes LeBron James the sole player from his draft class who is still currently in the NBA. And I'm calling it too. This may very well be LeBron James' last season in the NBA. Very well, maybe. If not this season, definitely next season. Definitely next season. But yeah, so you have guys like those during LeBron James' draft class. And then for Stephen Curry, right? For Stephen Curry, his draft class was 2009. Okay? 2009. So you have veterans like Stephen Curry now, Blake Griffin, who's just retired, right? You have James Harden, who's still currently in the league, Stephen Curry, DeMar DeRozan, who's also in the league right now, Ricky Rubio, retired, or maybe not retired, but playing somewhere other than the NBA. You have who else? Drew Holiday, who's still in the NBA. Jeff Teague, who I believe is still in the NBA, if not retired. He might be retired. He might be retired, Jeff Teague. I'm not very sure 100%, but again, I have Jeff Teague, Taj Gibson, right? Who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Patrick Beverly, he's retired as well, I believe. Patrick Beverly, guys like him. Danny Green. A lot of these guys, right? A lot of these guys during their draft year, right? A lot of the veterans that are still currently playing right now, that are still currently in the league. The reason why I'm bringing all of this up is, again, back to the question that did I bring up this question before? No, I probably didn't, but I'm going to bring this question up right now, which is, once these players leave or make their exit in the league, right? Once Curry makes his exit from the NBA, once LeBron makes his exit from the NBA, once who else? Kevin Durant, once DeMar DeRozan, Drew Holiday, guys like this. Where do you think the NBA will be in the next 5 or 10 years? Genuine question. I want you guys to think about this, because the current state that the NBA is in right now, right? Again, in terms of viewership's plummeting, a lot of fans complaining about the current state of the NBA right now. Where do you guys think the NBA will be sitting in 5 or 10 years from now? Because the way I see it, honestly, once you got these veterans making their exit from the NBA, I genuinely think the NBA won't be the same as it was back then. And of course, the NBA isn't going to be the same every different era, right? But when I say the NBA isn't going to be the same, I mean the NBA isn't going to be the same in a good way. It's not going to be the same in a good way. Why? Because, again, the problems that we are seeing right now in the NBA currently, right? Again, in terms of excessive three-pointers, the lack of defense, the lack of key players or star players who are making their appearance for their games, right? Um, a lot of very bad, at least in my opinion, very bad calls or very bad plays from, or very bad calls from the refs. A lot of these things that are currently happening in the NBA, it's gonna make the NBA become less and less, in my personal opinion. You guys might think differently, okay? You guys might think differently, and if you do, please give me your opinions. Let me know what you guys think about this. But I think the NBA is going to be in a very bad place because a lot of the star players or a lot of the veteran players who brought a lot of eyes and a lot of attention to the NBA are again getting ready to make their exit from the league. And you don't have a lot of creativity, at least from what I'm seeing. You don't have a lot of creativity that you used to have back in the olden days for the NBA. Again, I'm talking about the 90s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, so on and so forth. You're not seeing a lot of that creativity anymore. All right, you're not seeing a whole lot of that. Again, you still have certain players here and there who are still trying to keep a lot of the intensity alive on the court. Which what I mean by intensity is like again the creativity, playmaking, creativeness, so on and so forth. You still got players who are still doing these things here and there, but all right, but for the most part, I'm not seeing a whole lot of that every single game or every single possession for a lot of these games. I'm not seeing a whole lot of that here and there, right? It might just be me. Who knows, okay? Who knows? It might just be me, but it's something that I'm noticing, and clearly, okay? Clearly, it is something that a lot of fans are also noticing when they're tuning in to watch the NBA. Also, I do hear a lot of the times when it comes to, subscriptions, because I think the NBA is like putting up a lot of subscriptions for people to tune in and watch the NBA, and a lot of these subscriptions are becoming very expensive, right? It's becoming very expensive to the point where people are no longer tuning in to watch the NBA at home or on their apps or on their phone. They're just tuning into the highlights. Me personally, I mostly watch the highlights. I don't normally watch the game lives because at times I may not have the chance to because I'm probably working, right, or doing other things, and so I mostly tune in to watching the lives of the not the lives, the highlights of the games. But that's something that I've also noticed a lot of people complaining about the NBA as well is the subscriptions, right? You got Peacock, you got ESPN, the ESPN apps. Where else? I don't know other apps. Maybe Hulu, right? I believe NBA has partnered with Hulu as well, and all these other streaming sites, right? The subscriptions or the payment for these subscriptions are getting very expensive, and people just aren't feeling more. They're not feeling interested enough to have to pay for these very pricey subscriptions just to watch a lot of these NBA games who or where are they are not living up to par in terms of performance for like again what I've listed before with a lot of the excessive threes, lack of defense, so on and so forth. So this is something that I wanted to talk about today. Again, I don't know about you, but once these guys start making their exit from the league, right? Again, once you got LeBron getting ready to leave the NBA, once you have Stephen Curry getting ready to leave the NBA, and all these other key veterans getting ready to leave the NBA, I very much so don't think that the NBA will be at a very good place. Granted, you still have guys like your Anthony Edwards, your Shea Gilgeous-Alexanders, who else? Tyrese Maxey, guys like these, certain players like these, who may still keep the momentum alive, here and there, but it just won't be the same in terms of a lot of people or fans being interested to continuing to watching the NBA as much as they used to back in the day, because Again, it's something that I've noticed with a lot of fans bringing in their complaints for the NBA and what it's looking like now, and again the viewership, starting to decrease more and more as the years go by, right? So I don't know. Hopefully there can be a strategy or a way to fix the situation because make no mistakes, these guys, your Currys, your LeBrons, your Kevin Durant's, they're not going to be there forever, right? These guys are going to retire too. They're definitely going to retire. And so you're going to have to find a way to get these new batch of players, these new players that are coming into the league. You're going to have to find a way to, or these players themselves are going to have to find a way to keep the NBA interesting and more hyped and fun to watch, to keep people coming and to keep the viewership from plummeting even lower as it already is, and to bring the hype or the viewership and the boost back into the viewership up again. All right, so hopefully things could get figured out in that aspect, but I don't know. It's looking very bleak, in my personal opinion. The future for the NBA is looking very bleak, in my opinion, and hopefully it doesn't end up to the point where it's just, not cared for anymore. Because I truly think basketball is a beautiful sport, very beautiful, very fun. Me personally, I love playing basketball. It has been a while though. It has been a while, and I've noticed this for myself. It has been a while since I've been playing basketball, and it really hurts that I have to say that. But it's been a while since I've touched my own basketball back at home and played basketball myself, and so I have to hop back into it. I have to, because I really do love basketball, man. I love watching basketball. I love playing basketball. I love talking about basketball. Basketball is just an amazing sport, and I hope that things don't start getting very dark in terms of the future for the NBA. But that's just me, okay? That is just me and my opinion. You guys might feel different. Your opinions might be different. So again, please feel free to let me know your opinions on the matter. Let me know what you think about what I've talked about and how you think the future will look for the NBA, all right? That's it for the show. That's it. Let me get into the verse of the day. One moment. All right. The verse of the day will be coming from Romans chapter 8, verses 38 through 39. The verse comes from Romans chapter 8, verses 38 through 39. Verset la sorti dans Romains chapitre 8, verset 38 à 39. I will begin reading, and it reads, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." Allow me to read that for you one more time. Okay? And it reads, "For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord." This is the kind of verse here, okay? These are the kind of verses here that I want, because, again, the verse kind of speaks for itself, right? The verse kind of speaks for itself in saying that there is nothing that can keep God's love apart from you, because God's love is that majestic. His love is that big for me, for you, despite us being a sinner. That's how large his love is. But this is the kind of thing here. This is kind of verse. This is the kind of verse that I always want to refer back to in every single aspect of my life. Because there may be times where I might feel doubtful. There may be times where I may fail. There may be times where I may feel tempted. There may be times where things are just not going well for me, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. This is the kind of verse here that I would love to always go back to every single time, right? Because for me personally, this chapter and these two verses here is what gives me confidence each and every single day. This verse right here. And this is the kind of verse that I always like to think about in terms of my, daily habits or my daily or just my day-to-day lifestyle. This verse here. This gives me confidence. This gives me peace. This gives me peace. This gives me closure. This gives me purpose. This gives me a reason each and every single day to go through life. This verse right here. Because when everybody else doesn't see me or recognize me, I understand that God sees me and God recognizes me through his love. This is what that verse does for me. And I hope and pray that this verse or these two verses do the same thing for you as well. Romans chapter 8 verses 38 through 39. I hope these two verses do the same exact thing for you, because this is what it does for me each and every single day of my life. All right? So read it, meditate on it, pray on it, and God will bless you accordingly. All right? So that's it for today. I love you guys, and I will see you all right back here on Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. just to talk about random life subjects or random topics in general. All right? I love you guys. All right? And I will see you then.